How's it going, Rogues Gallery? Today we're going to be checking out and discussing Elestrals and why you should pay attention to it, why you should care about this game. I actually find this game to be incredibly fascinating for multiple reasons. It's a game that was first funded on Kickstarter back in 2022, so it's been about 3 years since this game was funded. It has since had multiple set releases, as well as another second successful Kickstarter for a digital version of the game, which should be coming out in Q3 2025. A free-to-play digital client, which I think is absolutely fantastic, and one of the reasons why I think this game is so interesting. And not just because of the digital client, but because of who makes this game and their mentality around trading card games and community and everything that kind of goes into it, competitive circuit, collectability, everything. Because the person who makes Elestrals, or the person like the head guy behind the whole thing, is none other than a fellow content creator, aDrive, who used to do a lot of Pokemon content. And you can see a little bit of that influence in Elestrals from like the character design, but the game doesn't really play like Pokemon. It does like a little bit, but I would describe it as a mix of like many different games, and I think it's pretty interesting. We're gonna go to a top-down view and, you know, talk about all of the mechanics and all that kind of stuff, because I'll be honest, I have covered Elestrals here on the channel a couple times before. They have sent me those like creator boxes with no strings attached, I want to add, and now I'm going to be giving it a second, a little bit more of a thorough look. My first experience, I'll be honest, trying out the game with the initial starter decks was like middling. I felt the original starter decks had a lot of like tempo issues, and it made some of the core mechanics feel not as good to me as I think they could be. But today we're going to be checking out the newest starter decks. This Divine Champions Firestorm double starter deck bundle. So you get 2 decks in this one product. You get some booster packs, and we'll talk about what I think about this product in general. Spoilers, it's very good. And then talk about how the decks play against each other. Talk about, you know, my opinion of the game now, after I've, you know, given it a second look and a lot more time. And I will say, yes, my opinion has changed. And so watch on to see how much it has changed. And before we do that, I also just want to mention like all the other stuff that they do. Look at this cute little plushie of this little Zaptor. They are doing like everything, everything that you would expect. You have booster sets, you have like promo packs, you have starter decks, you have organized play support, you have cute little extra stuff like this little Zaptor plushie, and then I also have a Voldusk plushie as well. Look how cute these are. They've done a good job of making their characters like cute. So yeah, I dig it. These are actually pretty well-made plushies as well. They don't really go into the whole review aspect of it, but I just wanted to mention everything that is Elestrals and that is going into this game. And I think it helps make everything more of a complete picture about what Elestrals is and what you would be getting into if you decided to give the game a shot. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go into the top-down view and talk about how you play Elestrals, all of the mechanics, my thoughts behind it, as well as some other thoughts, including how their card quality has increased and gotten better over time, as well as just the general quality of the starter deck and everything else. So yeah, we're talking about Elestrals today. Let's do it. All right, so let's go ahead and start by talking about all of the Elestrals main booster box sets. There are other like promo sets, as well as the Founders Kickstarter set, but let's talk about the main retail releases so far. As you can see, we have 5 here, but the first one, the Elestrals base set, coming out on March 15th, 2024. Now, the Kickstarter version came out the previous year in 2023, and the Kickstarter started in 2022 to kind of give you a timeline of things. Since the first set came out, every few months they have been putting out more and more sets, with the second set being Frostfall. Then we have Daybreak, Moonrise, and the newest set, Divine Champions Firestorm. And the release window between each of these is varied. It's not always super consistent, I have noticed. But let's go ahead and kind of talk a little bit about the card quality, how it's changed from the first set to something like Firestorm. In fact, I started noticing card quality improvements starting at Daybreak. And one of the things that stuck out to me the most is that, well, here, I just have literally the box is just full of cards here. For set 1, the base set here, a lot of the cards had a tendency to clump and then just stick together. In fact, let me grab, some of these are mixed with promos, so let me just grab like an actual just chunk of set 1 cards. So here we have one of the spirits. We'll talk about all the card types and how to play in a moment, but I wanted to talk about the card quality. So they had a tendency to just kind of clump and stick together. It's not very, I don't know, great to like, well, here's a good example. It's not really great to like flip through the cards. You can see they just like they all like bunch together, and you can't just kind of like fan through the cards very well. And that's one of the things that I immediately noticed when opening up the base set, right? The other thing is that the card stock is very papery, more so than like a cardboard kind of deal. You can kind of feel it with the finish. It's like more of like a matte style finish than a lot of other trading card games out there. You can tell they don't use the same manufacturer as everyone else. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because we know that some manufacturers, their quality control is not always the best. Though I will note that foils do tend to curl, at least here for the base set. You can kind of see it a little bit here, because these cards have just been sitting, they've just been sitting around in this box. So that's the base set. And like I said, I started noticing improvements at Daybreak, but let's go ahead and just jump to the latest set here, Divine Champions Firestorm. So we're going to clear these out. We're going to check out this one in particular. Now here we have, like I said, Divine Champions Firestorm. This is the newest set at the time of this recording. It came out in May 2025. And well, it's kind of a cool set actually. And I really like the starter decks that released alongside this set. But let's talk about the card quality first here. So we're going to grab the stack of cards here. And as you can see, much better. You can see how the cards easily flip between one another. Here is Hermes, one of the, like, I don't know you want to call it, like a main deity. I do want to mention something about Elestrals that we haven't talked about yet. Is kind of like the overall theme and style that the game is going for. So when you look at it, you look at this soul stocks, you're like, okay, they're going for like kind of like a Pokemon-esque style aesthetic, and it makes a lot of sense because the creator of this aDrive is someone who, you know, covered the Pokemon trading card game. However, they mix that kind of like monster style with like actual real-world myths and legends. And so we have stuff like Poseidon, we have Hermes. So it's kind of like this mix between like these, you know, cute, sometimes not so cute monsters, as well as like more real life stuff. Also, all of the names are very pun-tastic. So if you like puns, well, here you go. We have this Vol Tempest. It's a big electric bird. Yeah, so that's kind of like the theme here. We do have also like extended art cards. There's also multiple rarities. We'll talk about the rarities as well. But overall, it really feels like the card quality has gotten a lot better here. Once again, let's just grab kind of like a random chunk, and you can see nothing really sticks together. It doesn't really have that like sticky, waxy feeling that the first couple sets did. Yeah, it's great. You can do stuff, you know, like that. It's great. Look at this cute little guy. Panda sign. Yeah. So yeah, card quality getting a lot better. And for me, someone who like plays a lot of card games, deals with a lot of cardboard, that's kind of important, especially when you're like flipping through your cards. Obviously, when you're playing actual decks, it'll be sleeved up, but I still think overall card quality is important. And these are, you know, all of the foils. And so far, they also seem to be a little bit better. You can see a little bit of curling, but not much. This has been sitting around for a couple weeks. Yeah, not too shabby, I think, here. Let me go ahead and pull out, we'll show the card that I kind of showcase at the start here. Now this is Twindra. This is a promo. However, this is of their highest rarity, which is Stellar. So there are multiple rarities in the game. You have common, uncommon, rare, and then we have Stellar. And I do happen to have this nice little handy dandy chart to kind of show you how to tell the difference. So we have common, uncommon, rare, and Stellar. And the way you can tell that is by this bar here on the bottom. It's kind of a unique, way to denote rarity. Sometimes it'll just be like a little letter. It'll be like or it'll be a color, depending on what card game you're playing. Maybe sometimes both. But yeah, this one has like this little bar on the bottom. So for me, when I first checked this out, I was like, how do you tell what the rarity is? We'll refer back to this kind of cheat sheet in just a moment. But I will also say I've never actually pulled a Stellar Rare from a booster pack that wasn't like one of these promo packs. And I do believe that these like tournament promos, like we have Tournament Pack Series 2, obviously I've opened it already, but I'm pretty sure that each of them comes with a promo Stellar. So this is a Theraheart Stellar, and then we'll show off this other one here. We have this Waylance Stellar. And Stellars are not, as far as I know, or at least up to this point in time, they're not mechanically unique. It's kind of like a extra chase. I know a lot of them, if not all of them, from the booster packs are serialized, whereas like these promo ones, as you can tell, they are not. So yeah, let's go ahead and clear this up a little bit, and let's talk about some of the other product offerings that Elestrals has. Now let's get to what I would deem the most important product for any trading card game, and that is their starter deck or pre-constructed deck products. Here, as we mentioned at the top of the show, this is the double starter deck bundle for Divine Champions Firestorm. And we're going to talk about this one in more depth, and we're going to use this one kind of as our baseline for evaluating the game currently, because this is their most current iteration of this. Though I have been also playing with the Moonrise. This one, no, it's not upside down. We have been playing with the Moonrise starter decks. They have some dice inside, but the decks themselves are all like sleeved up and whatnot. We have like a spin down D20 in here. This one also came with 3 booster packs, as well as a how to play guide. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I really liked that these ones came with a how to play guide and some other things that I really like. And this one did not. However, this one, the double starter deck bundle, is pretty cost effective. You get 2, from my experience, fun decks to play right out of the box. You get the 4 booster packs. So if you buy this and split it with a family member or a friend, each can take 2 booster packs and each take a deck. Whereas these, you just get 1 deck and 3 booster packs. And with all that said, I do want to mention the price of these. So these individual starter decks have an MSRP of $25 US. And the double starter deck bundle has an MSRP of $29 US. So it's a $5 basically more expensive, but you get that extra deck. So the value, just in terms of raw amount of cards that you get here, is very, very good. So I do like that, and when you get this, man, the box is just absolutely bursting with cards. So I do think overall this new double starter deck bundle is a great direction that the game is going, and a great way to get into the game and start playing, especially with the contents inside. Now, in terms of the offerings inside, you get the 2 decks, you get the 4 booster packs, you no longer get dice, and then you get kind of like these paper play mats that you see in a lot of trading card games. But these ones are of a little bit nicer quality than you would expect. They have like this matte finish that also reminds me of the cards themselves from the first set. We have how to play kind of stuff kind of on the playmat. I do really like this, by the way. I do like how the playmat has the keywords on it. It has the how to play video guide here in the QR code. We'll talk more about that in a moment, as well as the phases. And I feel like this kind of thing is very useful for a lot of new players to learn how to play, because you'll be referencing this as you play. The other side, well, it's just kind of like a poster, which is cute. I like it. You can use the poster then instead of the mat once you get like an actual like play mat here. And I do want to talk about some of the zones on here, because the zones are very important for Elestrals, because it's very similar to a lot of other trading card games that have limited zones. So if you are really familiar with this channel, you know I cover Shadowverse Evolve. Shadowverse Evolve has a 5-card limit on the field, as well as a 5-card limit in your EX area. Elestrals is similar, but it's actually only 4 cards here in the Elestral row on top, and then 4 cards here in the Rune row on the bottom. You also have an extra slot here for a Stadium card, which is kind of like a global effect. And then you have your Spirit deck. You have your main deck. So Spirit deck is exactly 20 cards. Your main deck is exactly 40 cards. And then you have what they call the Underworld. Think of this like your discard pile, graveyard, whatever you want to call it. So you do have a finite play space. The Spirit deck also doubles as your life. So yes, this is a game where I think you can just call it life decking, but it's done in a very interesting way, a way that you might not expect, because you also use the spirits to power up your cards, to play your Elestrals, and all of that. So it's kind of like this interesting double whammy of having your resources and life be the exact same thing. It's fairly unique in that regard, and it's exactly why I felt the initial starter decks, you can run into tempo problems, because you just run out of spirits and then you just couldn't do anything, which could happen just generally in Elestrals. But I think the better the decks are built and the better that they play, it minimizes that kind of feels bad state where you're just like, I can't play anything because all my spirits are gone. When you get to that point in the game, you know you basically lost. So let's kind of like go over some of the cards and a little bit more of the mechanics. We have our Spirit deck, right? So Spirit deck is exactly 20 cards. Like I said, it doubles as your life total. There are essentially 2 main ways to lose the game in Elestrals, or to win the game, I guess, if you're in the opposite position here. One of them is if your Spirit deck runs out of cards and you have to expend a Spirit, then you lose. The other way is that if your main deck runs out of cards and you have to draw a card, then you lose. So you can think about both of your decks being kind of your life total, but you definitely burn through your Spirit deck a lot quicker, and it's also, how you do damage to your opponent is usually in the form of getting through their Spirit deck. So this is also not shuffled. You can look through your Spirit deck at any time. When you mostly, choose to get a Spirit from your Spirit deck from a various effect, you just pick up your Spirit deck and you get a look at it, so you don't shuffle it, which is also very, very interesting. So you never randomize your Spirit deck. So it's great. It's a great resource system in that it's not random, doesn't take up slots in your deck, doesn't take up draws, and you can always just go and grab the one that you need. It also makes it so if you are deck building and you only need like a couple of very specific one, then you can you can include only a couple. So like in the Poseidon deck, it's almost all Leviathan, which is the water spirit, but it has a couple Luminapes, which is the solar spirit, and a couple Owloons, which is the lunar spirit, right? So mostly water, but a couple of these other ones that you will actually need for that deck. But once again, it's not random, so you can definitely include, 1 and 2 ofs for like the couple cards that you need. So you'll need the lunar one in order to use this card. This is a rune, which is kind of like think of it kind of like a spell, actually. Some runes stay on the field. Some runes are just kind of like one-shot kind of deals. Some of them are like surprise traps. So yeah, that is the Spirit deck. All right, so there's 2 other main types of cards in Elestrals. There are your Elestrals. A good chunk of your deck is going to be made up of your Elestrals. This is kind of how you attack and deal damage to your opponent, and usually how you wipe out your opponent's Elestrals, but you have runes to also help with that. And then we also have runes. Runes can be a lot of different stuff, actually. It's a card type that is fairly varied. You have cards that stay on the field, like Hestia here. She'll stay on the field and have various effects, but you also will have cards that are kind of just like one-shot deals, like Ambrosia. For your Elestrals, let's kind of like break down what we're seeing here. This is their attack. This is their defense or health. The symbols in the middle are their enchantment cost and the element type. So this is 3 fire spirits. We also have their effect. We have their type down here. We got bears, man. This is all about the bears. For your runes, it's a very similar setup. We have the enchantment cost, or the cost that is required to play this card. We also have the type of rune that it is. So in this case, this is a divine card, and we have a cheat sheet here as well that has all this type. So we also have divine, artifact, stadium, invoke, and counter. Invokes, I believe, are just kind of like the one-shot deals. Counters are usually also one-shot deals, but you can play them on your opponent's turn after you kind of set them up. Artifacts sit around and do stuff. Divine cards sit around and do stuff. And then stadium goes in the stadium area, and I believe there can only be 1 stadium card out at a time, so you know, keep an eye on that. Usually you'll want one that synergizes well with your deck. So like our deck, this Hestia deck in particular, we got a stadium that cares about all of our bears. Now let's talk about how you actually play the game and, you know, defeat your opponent. So let's start by talking about how you actually play an Elestral. The game itself, phase-wise, is very simple. You have your draw phase, your main phase, your battle phase, and then your end phase. Very, very kind of, you know, simple stuff. So you have your draw phase. You draw a card from your deck, just 1 card. You do not do this on the very first turn. On your main phase, you have to pick one of the following effects. You can cast an Elestral, which means play it from your hand. We'll talk about how you do that. You can ascend an Elestral, which means you can essentially upgrade into a bigger Elestral. We'll talk about how you do that as well. You can enchant an Elestral, which means putting more spirits onto it, which also helps you then ascend into an Elestral. I think this is the slow way of doing it. You have a lot of ways to expedite the process with special effects. Or you can expend a spirit to draw a card. And expending a spirit means you pick a spirit from your deck, from your spirit deck, you put it in your underworld. I was going to call this the graveyard. This is the underworld in Elestrals. So you choose one of those effects. You can play an Elestral from your hand, you can ascend an Elestral, or you can enchant an Elestral, or you can take a spirit and then put it into your underworld and you get to draw a card, depending on what you have going on and what you need. So let's talk about how you actually play an Elestral, right? So we'll just put this here for now. So if I wanted to play this Earth Scout, this Elestral only has a requirement of 1 fire spirit, which is great. And so in order to do that, you have to pick an open slot in your Elestral row. The slot has to be open. And then you're like, I'm going to play this Earth Scout. So you play the Earth Scout. And then you pick a spirit from your spirit deck. So we're picking this fire spirit, Vipyro, and then you attach it underneath, right? And then that's how you essentially play one. You decide if it's an attack position or defense position, very similar to like a Yu-Gi-Oh kind of deal. This one has more defense, so perhaps you'd like to play this Earth Scout on defense. And it also has a special effect if it's destroyed in battle, so we'll probably want this guy to defend for us. The special effect is when this Earth Scout is destroyed in battle, you can special cast 1 Spirit Bear Elestral from your hand or deck. Or special cast a 1 Spirit Bear from your hand or deck. For it being from your deck is kind of nuts. So when this Earth Scout dies, both itself and the spirit will go to the underworld. And then you can go special cast any of these 1-drop bears, right? So we can get this other Earth Scout. We can get this Earth Smog. We can grab any of these other ones. But let's say for the sake of this, we're going to pick this Earth Smog because we're going to talk about how you do a lot of different stuff here. So let's say this Earth Scout died in battle. Let's talk about how you special cast an Elestral, right? So we'll go search our deck. for this Ursmog, and we're going to special cast this Ursmog. It does not count as regular casting for our once per turn limit. It's a special cast, and you can do this basically as many number of times as you have cards that allow you to do this. Basically, we just do what the card says, right? So when this is destroyed in battle, you can special cast one Spirit Bear Elestral, or one Spirit Bear Elestral from your hand or deck. So we're gonna go and search our deck for Ursmog, and we just pick a spot. It has to be an empty spot, comes into play, and then we essentially put spirits on it to meet its requirement. I will also note now that if your Elestral ever has less spirits than its requirement, after all state-based actions and all that kind of stuff is checked, the Elestral dies. So you need to have at least that minimum number. It prevents you from just being like, all right, turn one, I play my big boss Elestral, right? And he just comes into play. You might be able to technically do that, but he's just going to die immediately. So you kind of like want to work your way up to your big Elestrals by special, or by ascending them, or special ascending them, or by, you know, various other of those type of effects, right? And so why I chose this Elestral in particular, by the way, is you can chain things together. So this one says you can expend a fire spirit in order to special cast a one spirit bear Elestral from your hand. So this one will die, we'll get this guy, and then this guy will also, we'll have to expend one, so we'll expend a fire, but then we can special cast another one drop. But this one has to be from our hand. But like you can kind of see how things can like chain together, and you can have like, these really fun turns where you get to play multiple things in a turn. The bears are really, really good about that. Other great synergy is stuff like this Earth Scout, which says, when you special cast this Earth Scout, you can search your deck for a Champion of Hestia and add it to your hand. So let's say, let's kind of rewind this one a little bit here. So let's go ahead and say this Ursmog comes into play. We expended a Fire Spirit from our Spirit deck. And then the one that we chose to play is actually going to be this Earth Scout. And that is special cast. So we special cast this. And this one says, when you special cast this, you can search your deck for a Champion of Hestia and add it to your hand. So we special cast this. And then it lets us search our deck for a Champion of Hestia, which is just any card that has this Champion of Hestia line on it, including more Earth Scouts, this Warmite, this Amphyrix. So yeah, the deck really, really synergizes, and it's quite a lot of fun. So we talked about how to play or cast your Elestrals. We talked about how to special cast your Elestrals. Let's talk about how to ascend your Elestrals. So we talked about like what you can do on your turn, only once per turn. One of the things you can do is ascend Elestral or enchant an Elestral. And what enchanting an Elestral means is you just take a card from your Spirit deck and then you can just put it on your Elestral. Right, so we'll put this other Vipyro on here, right? Now, we can't do that again on this turn. You can only do that like once per turn, or cast an Elestral, or ascend. But let's say we did this last turn and we have this kind of setup here. Let's try to ascend our Elestral. Now the way this works is you pick an Elestral on your field. We're gonna pick this Ursmog here, and then we send it to the Underworld, and then we cast our new Elestral on top of its spirits, on top of this one's spirits. But then we can also enchant as many spirits to it as we want from our other Elestrals. So let's say we wanna jam out our big dude here, right? We're gonna ascend here. So this Ursmog is going here. This one comes into play, but we're like, okay, we actually need 3 to keep this around, so we can pick this spirit from this Earth Scout, and it'll go on to our Majursa here. In order to pay for it. Then this one will die. So this one will die, and we'll have this out because this doesn't have the requisite number of spirits on it. So that's how you ascend. It's basically how you work your way up to your big cards here. You can also special ascend, which functions a little bit differently than special casting. Special ascend, basically, you do the exact same stuff that you would do to normal ascend, except that it doesn't take up your like once per turn action, which is great. But you still have to do all of the shenanigans to make sure you have enough spirits, which, you know, yeah, that's very relevant. I should also mention that if your Elestral has mismatched spirit types, which can happen, so let's say this one has 2 Vipyros and 1 Flurmine, so it's not It's not the triple fire that we need. Well, this, can happen, and it's not as bad as you would think, though it's still not great. What this means is that it's misenchanted, doesn't die, but it basically has no effect on its text box. So you can basically treat the text box as though it were blank, but you could still attack and defend with it, so you'd still have this 8/13, but it just wouldn't have any effect. So keep that in mind as well. The other things we can do on our turn is we can change attack and defense position for our Elestrals, or we can play a rune card. So let's talk about how you play your rune cards. These are the 5 types of rune cards in Elestrals. We have our Divine, we have the Artifact, we have the Invoke, which are going to be some of the most common ones that you play. We have the Stadium, and then we have the Counter. So let's talk about the Counter first, because it's relevant to all the other ones. So in order to play a Counter, you have to first pick an open spot and you play it face down, and then you can activate it on your opponent's turn for whatever the effect is. So this one in particular, the Chains of Prometheus says, this Chains of Prometheus can only be played when an opponent activates a counter rune. Negate that rune, and that opponent returns any spirit from their underworld to their spirit deck. So you basically heal them 1, but this is just like a nice counter spell to their counter, right? It does cost 2 of the fire spirits to play. So basically what happens is you have this face down, your opponent activates their thing, then you can do your thing, and in order to play this, you pick 2 fire spirits and you just kind of yeet them. So that's how you essentially pay for most of these. You just pick the spirits and you yeet them. So it almost does 2 damage to you. So you gotta make sure that this card is negating something that's quite strong. So that's how you play counter cards. You play them first face down. Don't pay for their cost here. You only pay for their cost when you flip them up. So that's that kind of card. Next, we have the Divine cards. So this is Hestia. Essentially, she says, when you cast this Hestia, you can enchant up to 3 fire spirits to it. You can disenchant, which means take cards from it and then throw it into the underworld. So you can disenchant 2 fire spirits from it, so take 2 of them, put in the underworld, in order to special cast a 1 spirit fire Elestral from your hand. So it's another way to special cast our 1-drops, which is great. With a fire spirit, if an opponent controls the same number of Elestrals as you or more. So she just kind of helps you turbo out your dudes, which is great. So in order to play this Hestia, once again, we need to have an open spot, and then we just go ahead and take the spirits. This time it's going to be more similar to an Elestral, where you take the spirit and then you enchant it. Her special effect says that we can enchant 3 on her, and then we can do her other effects whenever it says that we can do them. So that's great. We can have the 3 on her. We also have other cards that care about having Hestia on the field, and all that kind of stuff. So we also have artifacts. So artifacts are very, very similar to Hestia in that they kind of stick around. So this is the Torch of Hestia. The Empowered Elestral gets +2 attack. When the Empowered Elestral declares an attack, you can foretell 3. If Hestia is enchanted, so we have a Hestia here that is enchanted, we can add a fire card foretold this way to our hand. So in order to play this one, very similar, we play it, we take Fire Spirit from our deck in order to enchant this, so we take 1 Fire Spirit, and then we pick an Elestral that is going to be empowered. I don't think you can change without shenanigans, without other effects, so you pick an Elestral. So we'll pick this Ursmog here, and it's going to get that +2 attack. When this Elestral dies, so does the Artifact as well. They're kind of paired with each other. In fact, if the Elestral leaves at all, the Artifact goes into the underworld. What the other effect means, it says you can foretell 3. That means you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you can put them back in any order. But this one has an additional effect of if Hestia is enchanted, you can add a fire card foretold this way to our hand. So it kind of lets us draw a card, which is pretty good. And that happens on every single attack of our Elestral that the Artifact is on, which is pretty good. And then we also have 2 other types of runes. Let's talk about the Stadium cards. Once again, you probably guessed it, really easy to play. You pick the required amount of spirits, you attach them to it, and then this one goes into our Stadium area up here. So like once again, so we'd have to grab this Flormine and this Vipyro, and they both go on this. And this one says, your Bear Elestrals get +1 attack and +1 defense. when a player plays a Bear Elestral, you can enchant any type of spirit. So this symbol here, just kind of a little swirly spirit, it means any type of spirit, to this Ursa Den. You can disenchant 4 from the Ursa Den in order to special cast a bear from your hand or deck, which is very, very good. The final type of rune card are your invoke cards, and you can technically play this if you have all of your slots filled. You just have to kind of like yeet one in order to be able to play it. So keep that in mind. If you have these all like full up, say we have another card just kind of like chilling here. Say we have this card just chilling here. In order to play this, we can be like, okay, well, let's get rid of one of these in order to play this, right? This symbol means it can be any spirit, so we just pick literally any spirit, yeet it, and then we play it. This one is just a once effect, right? So this one in particular is very good. It just says you can return up to 3 of any spirit from your underworld to your spirit deck. So it basically returns 2, like you get a net 2. So you play this, and then you can get 3 back. So we're like, oh, we're running low on Vipyros, we get our 3 Vipyros back, which is why this card is a staple card. It's really nice. Basically, it heals you and helps you, fuel everything that you're doing. So now let's wrap everything up and talk about combat and killing your opponent after we've talked about all that kind of stuff. I also want to talk about the mulligan system for the game, because I think that's interesting as well. But all this just kind of goes into, your enjoyment of Elestrals, whether or not you kind of want to play it. It does have a lot of interesting things. Like I said, you do have like your life deck, or your spirit deck as your life, doubles as your life and your resources. So in order to do combat, your Elestral has to be in attack position. So let's attack with this dude here. Let's attack with this Earth Scout, right? So he has to be in attack position. This is attack position. This is defense position. If your opponent has no Elestrals, then you damage their spirit deck, which is exactly what you want to do. So you basically want to kill your opponent's Elestrals and then attack them directly. Once again, very similar to like Yu-Gi-Oh! If they have 1 or more Elestrals, you have to pick 1 to attack. Once again, very much like Yu-Gi-Oh! So if you have your attack position Elestral and you attack into their attack position Elestral, you destroy the one with the lower stat. If they're equal, you destroy both. If either is destroyed, the other damages that player's spirit deck. So you kill their Elestrals and then it damages their spirit deck. We'll talk about how you do the damage calculations. However, if it's in defense position, it's a little bit different. So if it's in defense position, you destroy their Elestral if its defense is less than your attack stat, and then no damage happens unless the card says so. So having your dudes in defense position is a great way to make it so that, hey, you don't take any damage. So the way you do damage on Elestrals is if your Elestral deals damage to your opponent's spirit deck, you count how many spirits are enchanting that Elestral. So the Elestral that deal the damage. So this Earth Scout has 1 spirit on it. Then that player expends that many spirits. So they get to pick which spirits that they want to expend, so it's not random. And then they put it into their discard pile, into their underworld. So this Elestral basically will deal 1 damage. You can enchant it with more spirits if you want to end up dealing more and more damage. But that's essentially how you deal damage in Elestrals. If that damage happened during an attack battle, so attack versus an attack, reduce the damage by how many spirits the destroyed Elestral had enchanting it. So this Earth Scout and this Warmite are doing battle with each other. So this Warmite's going to win because its attack stat is higher than this Earth Scout's attack stat. So this one would die. Then you would check the number of enchantments on this one versus the number of enchantments on this Earth Scout. So this one had 1, this one had 1, so you deal no damage to the opposing player. However, if this Warmite had 2 on it, it would deal 1 over onto your opponent. So they'd have to expend 1 spirit. So combat's pretty simple. You just compare the numbers, and then you basically do the math to figure out how much damage you're going to be doing. The direct attacks are how you do it. So like say this Warmite is doing a direct attack to your opponent, they would have to expend 2 spirits from their spirit deck. The last thing I wanted to talk about is start of game and mulligans. So let's go ahead and kind of set everything back here, because mulligans are really interesting in Elestrals. In fact, I don't really know of any other game that has a mulligan system quite like Elestrals, just because of the nature of it. So in Elestrals, when you start the game with, we'll just shuffle these up real quick. I have the deck in order so I could better illustrate and find cards, but let's shuffle it up for this purposes. So when you're starting a Elestrals game, you open with a hand of 5 cards. So let's take a look at our 5-card hand here. We're basically looking for 1-drop Elestrals. This is actually a pretty good. This is actually a pretty good starting hand, because the 1-drop Elestrals are the ones that we're going to be able to play and, you know, make good use of this. But if we wanted to mulligan, the way that mulligans work in this game is, like I said, quite interesting. So let's say this hand was bad. I think this is actually a quite good hand. But let's say this hand was bad and we want to mulligan this. Well, what do we do? So in order to mulligan your hand, you literally shuffle it back into your main deck and then redraw 5 cards. However, every time you do this, you have to expend 2 spirits from your spirit deck. No, of course you get to choose which ones they are. Anytime you expend a spirit, you always get to choose which one it is. But, you know, so let's say we'll just do one of each here. So every time you mulligan, you basically deal 2 damage to yourself. And now you could do this as many times as you want. So say like this hand is bad. This one's actually a pretty decent hand as well. But if this hand was bad, we're like, okay, we want to get rid of this. Well, then we shuffle it back in, deal 2 more damage to ourselves, and then we draw 5 cards again. So basically you can keep mulliganing as much as you want, as long as you keep taking that damage. So it's kind of like this risk-reward type of deal. And also, you know, definitely rewards players for having competent decks that have, you know, a good number of like 1-drops in particular, or cards that let you special cast your Elestrals. So yeah, I thought the mulligan system is pretty fascinating for this game. So I think that's just about everything. Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about like my final thoughts on Elestrals and whether or not I would overall recommend it to folks out there. So let's go ahead and we have our Hestia deck, and then where's that Poseidon deck? It's right here. So I have this Poseidon deck here. So I do recommend this starter product. I think it's great. Let me go ahead and grab the box here. The Divine Storm, or yeah, Divine Champions Firestorm, the double starter deck bundle. So you get the 2 decks for $30. You get some booster packs, and like some paper play mats. But I think the decks are fun and competent enough to pick up and learn to play Elestrals. I think these are a lot better than their initial outing, and I think it shows the development of the deck design and everything like that. The decks, like I said, function really well. You saw like all the bear synergy that we talked about earlier if you watched the entire video. But this Poseidon deck has a lot of, like, you know, water synergy, right? So the Sluggle, for example, says, when the Sluggle receives 1 or more water spirits with Poseidon's effect, you can special ascend this Sluggle to a Glaubie from your hand or deck. So you're just gonna go search for a Glaubie, and you just special ascend it. It doesn't have to be this Glaubie. It can also be, where's their other Glaubie? It could be this other Glaubie too. This one is just the Champion of Poseidon, so it's a little bit different, which is cool. So like you have a lot of synergy. Like these cards let you just chain into more cards, and it makes it a lot of fun. The game pace of Elestrals is also fairly fast because, you know, your life and your resources are the same thing. So because of that, I think there's a nice amount of inevitability in Elestrals where games don't tend, at least in my experience with the starter decks, could for competitive play, don't quote me on this, but it feels like games don't really stall all that much just because of the nature of the game. You have to keep playing your spirits in order to, or keep expending your spirits in order to play your runes or to enchant your Elestrals, right? It also makes it so that if some Elestrals get on the field, they can kind of run away with the game. But in the starter decks, there are ways to just be like, I blow up your dude. There are some cards that are just like, I blow up your Elestral. Yeah, I do think this game is pretty fun, and you can kind of tell that they've progressed from the first starter offering up until this offering. Who would I recommend this to? Well, I'd recommend this to people who like this kind of like Pokemon-esque style aesthetic, like your cute creatures with like the pun names. If you like the idea of your resources and life being tied to each other, if you like the idea of having like a lot of flexibility in terms of how you use your resources, I think is a good way to put it. Then I think you'd like Elestrals. It does play differently than a lot of TCGs out there, but it has a lot of similar things. I think it has a lot more in common with Yu-Gi-Oh than Pokemon as a card game. Similar, but you can see where they're drawing ideas from, right? So instead of energy, you have your spirits, but they're not from your deck. And it is kind of like a once per turn thing, but there are ways to get around it. And you can, play, multiple runes a turn to help, combat that kind of stuff. And of course, I'd like to reiterate all the stuff I mentioned at the top of the video. You have a lot of organized play support. You have the free app that's coming, the free digital client that's coming later this year. The people who make this game are people who love trading card games, and you can tell that they are doing the things necessary to make it into a game that they would love to play. And I think it comes through in a lot of stuff. It comes through like with the starter deck product, and with just the Elestrals in general. So yeah, I think it's a pretty solid game. Kind of like revisiting it, I have changed my mind on it a bit. I have not played with any like super competitive decks, so it's hard to kind of get an idea. But I think from the starter offerings, the game feels a little bit more solid than when I first checked it out. So I definitely think it's worth an extra look. If you're like me and you checked it out once and you're like, I don't know, I think it might be worth checking it out again if you are into this kind of style. And with that, we're going to end the video. Let me know what you all think of Elestrals in the comment section down below. Have you tried it out? What do you think of it in terms of aesthetics, gameplay, organized play? If you're an Elestrals veteran and you play this game competitively, I'd love to hear from you. All of that kind of stuff, let us know in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching. I know this was a bit of a longer one, but I really wanted to give it a fair look after checking it out and kind of being put off by it. I wanted to give it like a really, give it a good old college try, go deep into it and give it a proper second glance. And yeah, I think it's very solid. So I love what they're doing just in terms of like everything surrounding the game. And the game itself, I think, is pretty fun and unique. So those are my closing thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.